joining me for another episode of Cosmic Conversations. I'm your host, Marla Martenson, and I have a fantastic guest for you guys today. It's another Marla Frees. Hey, Marla.
Hey, isn't this great? I love going Marla. Well, you're my other favorite Marla, so
Yes,
thank you.
you're my other favorite Marla. And haven't you found on Facebook, like, I've met the coolest Marlas. There's about 8 or 10 of us up there that are all into the spiritual stuff, the woo-woo, and they're real cool. So there's something going on with Marlas lately.
Yes, it is really cool, and it's so great to be on your program, so thank you.
Thank you. So you guys, Marla is she's got an amazing memoir, which I've been reading and just devouring, called American Psychic. She is yes, show it. Beautiful, beautiful. Marla Frees.
There you go. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, definitely. It's well written. It's fast paced. You just don't want to put it down. I mean, I'm getting up. Before I'm out of bed, I'm already on the reading on my device, because I have to get to it. It's so interesting, fascinating. So Marla is a psychic. She is. I love this. You work with detectives on murders. You do remote viewing. You were an actress for many years. I mean, so. Let's just get into it. Yeah, let's start a little bit from the beginning. Where you grew up, such a modest upbringing out on a farm. Never probably thought you'd be in Hollywood solving murders and working on TV shows. And
well, actually, interesting you say that. We did have a farm. We actually lived in town.
Okay.
My father came back from the war in a body cast. He came back in 45, and I wasn't born until 58, but he came back in a body cast from having been blown up in a landmine accident. So he was blowing up Hitler's Siegfried Line and came back in a body cast, and that ended his career in the military, and he had to do something else. Mm-hmm. And that also ended my mother's dreams of being an officer's wife. Oh. So they settled in a small town in south central Pennsylvania, the town of Bedford, and it is truly the quintessential romantic sort of Norman Rockwell town. Mm. But it was, growing up in the 60s, and there were lots of problems, and my mother was not mentally well. Mm-hmm. So my father drank to get rid of his pain, and my mother was abusive. So that's kind of there's a thread that goes throughout the book of navigating my mother. So actually it was me having to intuit, Marla, how to navigate her so that I could not be hurt.
Right.
And it was watching the television set that she loved. And I thought, my God, if I can get into that television set, then maybe she'll love me and not hurt me.
Yeah.
And so that's how I became an actress. So that intention of me, going to Hollywood at some point in time in my career actually did happen. I mean, I really wanted to become a professional actress to make my mother happy. It had a whole other, response after I did. But yeah, that's sort of the, beginnings of what happened in my life, and that very interesting bucolic background. And there are a couple of murders that happened in my hometown, which set me on this course too.
Yeah, that little girl that you went to the lunch table, and she was little with blonde hair and a little cute little thing. And then she had been murdered, and you, saw that. Now, this is interesting because all this started as a kid where you would just see like a movie running in front of your eyes or in your brain. Tell us a little bit about that, how you would just suddenly see psychic.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's very interesting. I don't know if other psychic mediums do this, but boy, I sure did. And it wasn't as though it was happening a lot as a child. It just happened a couple of times when I was a child. But of course, in the mid-90s is when this all exploded. But I would go blind to my present circumstances. Like I couldn't see the computer and I can't see my, the books or anything. I have a movie going on in my head and I have to pay attention to what is absolutely going on. And sometimes it's information, psychic information, and oftentimes it's dead people. Mm-hmm. And of course, here's the deal. I did not believe in this. I did not believe in this whole talking to dead people business. So, and I had an attitude about it. I was judgmental and I was snarky about it. So you have to be careful what you're judgmental about, because it just might come around and bite you.
Right, right. That's interesting. And so do you feel that this kind of self-preservation and kind of shocking things that your mother would do, physically abuse you, emotionally abuse you, sort of was the catalyst for opening you up to this?
Well, yes. And I think that this is one of the, as a facilitator, as you are, this is one of the key aspects. And, in getting ready to work with you, I thought, wow, one of the big wounds for me is because of what she did to me that has affected my relationships for basically the rest of my life. Yeah. So as a child of trauma, I learned that many of us dissociate, that splitting of our personalities. So when things were being done to me that shouldn't have been done, my consciousness was leaving and going out to other people's houses, like trying to knock on windows and get in there, just leaving my body as self-preservation. And then coming back to the body and having to deal with how the body felt after all of that. But that is truly what I think really did heighten my sensitivities. So trauma, whether it's physical, emotional, or whatever, can actually exacerbate these heightened sensitivities that we do have. There are lots of people walking around that are empaths, Marla, and they don't have boundaries. And we know you have to have boundaries. So the first half of the book is called Blindsided, which is basically it's a medical term meaning a blind person who has the ability to perceive a light source. And that's kind of how we're all walking around feeling blinded, and we need to be able to see our way through this. And the second half of the book is called Insight. And when I started to heal the trauma, Marla, that is when all of the psychic stuff started pouring in.
Yeah. And you had this thing that you called the voice that would just tell you,
yes,
be careful or do this. And there was this one part when you ended up in Cuba with this guy, that you were dating from Cosmopolitan magazine. And then she was sitting there and in this compromising situation with this scary man. And the voice said, sing.
Yes, sing.
He broke into a song and dance for him. And he's like, yeah, that's good.
Well, so that your listeners understand what happened.
Yeah.
I was hijacked to Cuba, so to speak. I ended up in Cuba on a date with a Cosmopolitan Bachelor of the Month. And it's a pretty amazing story. But I had been dealing with, I guess you'd have to say, danger most of my life. And here I was in a very dangerous situation with these dangerous international mobsters. And I literally was told to sing. And it actually got me out of that situation. Yeah. And I had been working with the opera company in Milwaukee at the time.
Right.
And just the voice that had been with me since I was basically 14, the voice that saved my life in an accident with my horse said, sing. So I did, and it got me out.
Yeah. So
were you going through that chapter going, oh my God, I hope she gets through it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I knew you did since you're here, but since you're alive, but I was like, oh my God, because there's who knows what could have happened there. And that fact that you were only in little shorts, a pair of shorts and a little tube top. And then you went to Chicago, it was snowing and had to get back. The guy didn't even get you back all the way home. I remember the Cosmopolitan Bachelors, and you could write to them, and they put a hunk. It was like The Bachelor back then, but he was in the magazine, the
magazine. Well, of course, you as a facilitator for relationships would key in on that. Can you imagine? That was back in those days. That's what we did. We looked at Cosmo because everybody thought that was about fashion, but it was all about sex.
Yes, it sure was.
So it was sort of the Fred Flintstone version of The Bachelor.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's so. And then yeah, he called you up. Hey, I got your letter, and he got thousands of letters. It was like,
yeah. So, yes, it's quite a story. I'm glad you liked it. Yeah,
I like that. And then the stalker, in LA, that guy that was coming around, and you had to get finally a restraining order, because I think, and as I was reading some of these Hollywood stories, I was acting in Hollywood in Chicago for a couple of decades, and I remember when I first went to Hollywood in the early 80s, and there was this one casting director, and he took a liking to me. And I was only like 21. And one time he says, come over to the office. I want you to read for something, but wear some lingerie. And so I was like, or bring some, or I want you to change into. So I had my neighbor, who was in her 40s, come with me, and she was a real tough cookie. And she goes, okay. And she gave me a bunch of her French. She was from Europe, and she gave me all this French lingerie, and we carried it in there together. And she came in with me. And when he saw her, he says, oh, I forgot I have a tennis game. I can't.
Yeah, there you go.
Reschedule. Yeah, but what could have happened to me? And I was in a lot of compromising situations, modeling for this one guy in his clothing store, and alone. And he says, well, I really want you to take all your clothes off, because I want to see if you have any scars or birthmark. And I was like, no, but I could have been raped so many times. I was so dumb. I mean, I was so naive.
Well, you read how I got into trouble, and that was, we got into trouble, and that date with that Cosmopolitan, it was in response. We just have to go there because of the work that you do. Yeah. Yes, I was raped, and it was my response to being raped, because I could not actually deal with it. I could not, I guess it was Rohypnol, but this is one of the things, and this is what your listeners probably will glean from this. It was back in the day when we didn't know about Rohypnol. It was back in the day when we didn't think that we had a voice. And when your body is numb and you can't scream, and you know that something's happening to you, you feel like you're an observer to it. Yeah. And the problem for me was I ended up in my apartment. I mean, he raped me in the car, and I don't even remember how I got back to the apartment, and I lost a day. And that whole experience was so shame-filled, and I didn't know how to handle it, and I didn't have really any friends where I was living. I had left college, and I didn't know what to do, and I didn't feel like I could even talk to the police. And of course, now that I look at it, that was many years ago, I did have other choices, right?
Yeah. But we didn't know, and like with me and girls in Hollywood back then, you want so badly to hope that it's true, that they're going to give you a part or something, and then you talk to them or go out with them or whatever, and it's just
yeah. Well, the days of the Weinstein days, right. We were so naive in so many ways, but this was even before, I even came out to Los Angeles. Yeah. I had been living in a building that was owned, operated, and occupied by the Milwaukee mob. And it wasn't them. They actually were very protective of me. It was someone who came to their establishment and followed me. And, shocking as though it was, I told the mob what happened, and we never saw that guy again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked that. It was like, he didn't show up at the restaurant again.
Well, the weird kind of thing about this is when I was doing the book tour, because the book actually came out in 2018, but I just finished the audio, so the audio is out there now. But I went back to Chicago and Milwaukee, and I went to the building where this all happened, where I lived and where I, lived with the mafia. It was called Snugs, and it was now an apartment complex, and I actually got in the door, and there's a great picture of me that a girlfriend took. It's like the greatest picture that anybody's ever taken of me in the lobby of this building. And it's the book website is americanpsychicbook.com, but if you go to the gallery, you'll see me pose there in this little pose with this sort of like all this Italian stuff around me. It looks really great. But you'll see in the picture that there is a little dark like shadow right there on my face where I felt one of the mob bosses kiss me. He's dead. Oh. And I felt him come to me in this building, and he joked with me and he kissed me. And actually on the photograph are these dots of these lights on the bottom of my skirt. It's the weirdest photograph. It's really cool.
Wow, I got to go check that one out.
Yeah, it's really neat. But he showed up in consciousness to communicate with me, and I thought that was really quite remarkable.
That's interesting. Now, with your psychic ability, it's interesting when I'd read that it would just show up, you'd touch something or something would happen and it would just happen. And nowadays, well, I've heard other psychics, they have to like get into a certain zone or.
Yeah.
How does it work with you? Are you like, if you're just sitting there, do you see some, spirit guides here now over here, or is it constant, or do you have to consciously tune in, or you turn on and off? What happens?
Well, actually, that's a really great question. First off, I work psychically and as mediumship stuff. So how I set this up is for people's highest good. So my intention is to bring people information for their highest good. Now, as I'm sitting with you, I'm just going to tell you what I feel, whether it's about you or someone that's close to you, but I get burning all through here. So it's like in the lungs, this whole area, chest is burning. And that's just me looking at you. And it might not be you, but as you ask me, this is where I'm going. So what?
Well, I've been in a state of stunned shock the last 3 days because one of my good friends, Christina, she just died. She died July 17th, but I just found out about it 3 nights ago. And she had a rare lung cancer that was just, and she had said burning and yeah.
So this is what I feel. And she very well may be showing up with us today, right now. Yeah. So if that's where your consciousness has been, and I get very emotional even starting to process this. Actually, so we're just going to bring her in.
Wow.
So I don't always feel the kinds of emotions that I'm feeling. And, we're recording this. So I'm just she knows that I have to push through this. But this is the love that is between the two of you. She tells me, use this as a teaching tool. So I will. So the bottom line is there's no other reason for me to do this work unless it is to build bridges of love, to show you on some level that consciousness survives death. So now that I have made that communication, I don't feel that anymore. Mm-hmm. So I don't even feel the emotion of her needing to make that communication. You know that she's with you. You know you can talk to her. You know that you've been in communication about various things. And what's the deal with your washer? Are you having problems with your laundry facility or something? Are you bitching about doing laundry? Is your husband not doing laundry? There's something that she says you're bitching about regarding your laundry facility.
No.
So make a note about that.
Make a note about it.
Yeah, but she's telling me that she watched you doing laundry. And you guys were bitching about something. Not that you were having a bitch fest with your husband. It was just that there was something going on. And maybe it was just that you were, connected to her or upset. But she saw you doing laundry.
Okay.
And if it was just within the last 3 days, that's what she's showing me. She's showing me you in front of your laundry doing it. She shows me you kind of upset. You kind of, doing it. And maybe that's how she wanted me to know that she was with you because you were worried about her.
Oh, I haven't stopped thinking about her. I've just been like so and we were like, I knew her for almost 20 years, and we'd see each other a couple times a year. We'd text. She only lived about 30 minutes away. We weren't best friends, but we were very good friends.
Yeah.
And she was young. She was only in her early 50s. She didn't smoke. She was healthy. In February, she started getting very, very sick, diagnosed in June, and died in July. And I
So,
didn't know.
okay, so this is interesting. So you're sure it wasn't COVID?
It wasn't COVID. Her friend on the phone told me she was tested 10 times. She
Yeah.
did not have COVID. It
Well,
was,
this is really interesting because, it's like a mold. It's like something that got in her. And it's, whether it showed up as COVID or not, it's one of those things that happens to be, it's because it's not cancer.
oh, they said she was diagnosed with a very rare kind of aggressive lung cancer.
Oh, so she shows me that it looks like it just crawled in her chest. So I don't see, it doesn't show up to me like cancer. It shows up to me like it got in her and became, it just went septic with her. So
Yeah.
if that's the diagnosis, that's fine. I mean, she's deceased, but that was
It
ridiculous.
was very like they couldn't diagnose it for months. They couldn't figure it out, and then they
Yeah.
diagnosed it as that, and she was like bloated and
Yeah.
burning.
Very, very. It looks like she came in contact with something. That's the thing.
Ah,
So it looks to me, and my screen right now in my mind is right here. That's why I'm looking up.
oh,
So
interesting.
it feels like it just ravaged her. Like,
Mhm.
how bodies go septic, but I could feel the burning.
She told the woman I spoke to, her friend that was with her all the 3 weeks until she died, told me she had told her, my lungs are on fire.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, she doesn't feel that anymore. She doesn't
Yeah.
have to live with that anymore. And
Yeah.
she's grateful, deeply grateful. She shows me a tan animal and it's running around. So it might have been hers. It might be dead and it's with her, but it just shows up right now. So a furry little tan animal. So she has company on the other side. It's curious. She doesn't want you to just say goodbye and go. She'd like to be in communication with you.
Oh, I was hoping that.
Yeah, so it's not like, I'm just making the introduction that you've already been feeling her. She just showed up for me to validate your connection to her. You've also did an angel card or something. She shows me an angel card. That
I do read angel card readings a lot.
Yeah, but she will show up for you in that way.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, whether you've already pulled one or not, she wants you to shuffle the deck, and it's the third card from the top.
Okay, she'll show up in an angel card. Okay.
Yeah, in your cards. Also, she shows me, and is it you or your husband that's having the radiating pain down the arm? So she shows me that.
The reason I asked to do this a couple hours later than we were supposed to, because I have a excruciating pain in my thumb. We found out it's a ganglion cyst.
Yeah, got it.
But just before I was reading your book, and I had this radiating pain. I was going like this, half an hour ago.
Well, that's really interesting. She made me feel that.
Wow.
Now, this is what's weird. It might be just another way of giving information that this happened to you, like getting your attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she made me feel that.
Yeah.
But it could also be what we call myofascial trigger points, where this ganglion cyst might be from an old injury that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Something that is up in here. So I would do some pressure point stuff around that and see if that releases the pain here.
Okay.
Myofascial trigger point stuff. But isn't that interesting?
Well, go ahead.
Well, I just want to give an example for for your followers here, that often use our bodies as Geiger counters. You know, as I started talking about the book, I would have to intuit things about my mother to survive her, right? So my cells and the paramecium on my cells would go, ee! That kind of thing. And that's another gift of our fear. That's a gift that we have, that our bodies will tell us things way before our mind can even catch up to this. You know, psychically, people think I know everything, and I don't know everything. It's kind of like if you're an orthodontist, you're not looking at people's teeth going, you know, looking at your teeth going, hey, Marla, you know, that back molar needs to be straightened out or something. It's not like that. It's like any job. So I focus when I can and when it's important, and then I don't, right?
Yeah.
So this dynamic with our bodies is kind of like that. The pandemic, I stopped paying on a trip last October for a trip this September to Italy, not knowing anything about Italy, not knowing anything about COVID. So my body stopped me making the payments on that trip.
Oh.
Nope, you're not going. Nope. But not knowing, right?
Right. I wish I knew that, because I paid $5,000 for a trip that I'm supposed to go on in October.
Sorry, should have called me.
So I want, before we get off, Christina, I want to say that this is so interesting, because some psychics will say it's too early to connect with them. So this is very early. She's only been gone not even a month, but she can still come through. What do you find with the dead?
Okay. Well, hold on a second. I've got more information for you. It's a testament to your willingness and your desire to communicate with her. Look, you already have these spidey senses going on. Yeah. I'm just here to validate it for you.
Yeah.
And, you know, you already knew what the diagnosis was, but the fact that she would make me feel that just by looking at you. So you started talking about this, and while you were asking about it, I thought, okay, I'm going to look. And all of a sudden, radiating, you know, heat and pain all through here. And as soon as we made that connection, it was over.
Right.
So I don't.
But she came in talking to you, so she.
Yes. So, but she's been talking to you. Mm-hmm. So whether you even remember you're doing laundry and stuff, she shows me. This is another one of these weird things that happens. I literally am in the area where you do the laundry, where you have your laundry, and she's showing me you kind of upset, having a conversation, and she put me there, like right in you.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, whether you remember it or not, she's making you remember it. And she wants you to know that was devastating, what she went through. And she is upset that she left like that. She didn't want to, she didn't think she was ready to go.
No. I mean, I'm still in shock. And her friend who called me, who I actually called Christina's phone, because I knew I hadn't heard from her in 3 weeks, because we had texted, and I thought, I just felt I need to look on the internet, and I had a feeling she had died. And I looked and I saw her obituary. I called her phone just to see if I could hear her voice on her voice machine or something. And a woman picked up, and it was a good friend that had also known her 20 years. I didn't know this woman, but she had been with her, and she told me, this one just broke my heart. She says, Christina was just elegant till the end. She was beautiful. She was classy till the end. And she went on the internet with the two women, her friends, and picked out her own urn to put. I said, she picked it out, and it's one of those salt ones that you put in and I'm going to go. I said, let me know. And we're going to go to the ocean at one point and put it. And I just picturing her doing that, sitting there, picking out her own urn at 53 or 54 years old, vibrant, healthy.
So she's actually laughing about that, but I'm also feeling, so there's a myriad of emotions going on. Also, it was in here. There's so much pain in here. So when I said septic, it just went right through her, even in her brain. Mm. So she shows me pain all the way in the back of here. And she said, I was just grateful to go, because that was not right.
Yeah. Yeah, her friend said she was just in misery those months. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
horrific. Yeah.
So I'm not like that anymore. I'm good. And,
Yeah,
she's fabulous.
good, because I'm going to try to keep connecting
Yes.
with her. I
Well,
want.
you are, and that's going to
Yeah.
help. She's going to help you. This is curious. She shows you out the back door. Do you have this big tree out your back door?
There is a big tree over, yeah, in the neighbor's yard, but it comes over to us.
Yeah, but it comes over. There's something about meditating by looking at that tree. And I don't know what it is, but she shows me that she can communicate with you. I don't know. That tree is significant.
Okay.
So you just go out there in the evening and sit down, take a notepad, and talk to her.
Okay.
And you'll be able to hear her. Just listen, whatever, Hi, Christina, what do you want? What do you want me to know? And listen and write down what she has to say, because she's got information for you. She also has, interestingly enough, she says she has some information about how you can make some money, which I don't hear that very often.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, she was a financial planner. That was her, a financial investor.
Oh, God, that's great. Love that.
All right, Christina, yes.
Yeah.
Stocks.
No, you're going to need Marla to pick the stocks, she said. That's funny.
Oh, how funny.
No, I'm serious. I'm just totally listening to her right now.
She had a great person. She has a great sense of humor. Cool. And her laugh, and she's German, so she had this heavy German accent with this laugh that was like really loud and just really fun. Yeah.
Well, good, because I can feel her in that way. We both can. So, don't drink any wine. Go out there when you're relaxed, and when it's after the heat, because you won't like the heat, she says. You won't like the heat. So wait until after the heat. Yeah. Maybe Tuesday of next week, she says, is a good time. That's great. I'm glad that we're tuned in, Marla. Now, isn't this interesting? You and I have never worked together. We've met each other once at that incredible,
viewing of a movie.
Viewing of that film, yeah. Bill Bennett's incredible film, The GPS, right?
Yeah.
And I met your husband, and it was, we had a lovely night.
It was great.
So here we are.
Yeah, and thank you so much for bringing that through. That is fantastic.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
And I love it that you did that to show people how it works, how how it's just great, because a lot of people.
It's just simple, but I wasn't sure what we were going to do, but I allowed myself, and it was here's the thing. When I was first learning this, dead people pushed themselves in on me. So whether you talk about the Akashic records, this is to prove that consciousness survives death. And the consciousness of her is very vibrant. And
something about her. See, I was always into the metaphysics and all this for many, many years. And when we met about 18 years ago, she would start reading my books. And in my books, I have a lot of spiritual themes, but I would recommend some spiritual books for her. And she started getting into it because of me. And so I was thinking about, that. And she was like, oh, yeah, I've been reading this and that and this kind of metaphysical stuff. And then I thought, after I found out she passed, maybe I can have that connection with her, because she was into it. Yeah, absolutely.
So there are a couple of things. So she's going to put you through a class, which is great. Oh my God,
already she's already over there.
Class with Christina. I love that. Okay, so write this down, she says.
Oh, I've got it recorded, Christina. It's recorded.
Right, but she's telling me, write this down. Okay. So she wants you to, at night, sit down in a comfortable chair where you don't have any distractions and start this writing process. And sometimes, and I'm supposed to share, I started this process years ago by just writing down how grateful I am. But she says she'll be available. And you just say, hi, it's me. What do you want to say? What do you want to talk to me about? Or what do you want me to know? And then just listen. And she might say something, like, you need to stop drinking iced tea. That's, I don't know. I'm just giving you an example of something.
Right.
Or you may want to communicate with Terry or Teresa, a friend of yours. She just might tell you that kind of stuff. But just keep yourself open to listening. One of the key things about when we worked as actresses, that's a key aspect of being an actress, is to be able to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't need to prepare anymore, as you saw. I mean, if you and I were working on the phone, because I usually work on the phone, of course, with this pandemic, and I'm not looking at people. I usually just like to focus on, and I'm not, I don't know these people who are calling, so I call them, I sit down, and all this stuff starts showing up because it's my intention to help them.
Yeah.
And my intention, and I set it up with them before we work together, that they have intention for their highest good. They might want to talk to Aunt Pearl, or, their cousin from years ago, or a boyfriend that they haven't seen in 50 years. But that might not be the best thing for their heightened awareness.
Right.
That might not be the best thing for them. So I always hold the space for getting information for your highest good.
And for who wants to come in, right? Because
right,
I have a lot of people on the other side, a lot of friends and family, but Christina came through, so it was.
Yeah, Christina came through. Yeah. So after this whole writing thing, she wants you to be able to go by the tree and relax. Okay. And she might start, as she did with us today, making us feel things. So we go back to that arm thing again. So she's showing me this as another way for you to psychically do medical stuff.
Mm-hmm. Medical intuition.
Yes, because that's how this is how she's showing me this. I
am a Reiki practitioner. I do that, but I don't.
It doesn't have anything to do with that. No. It has to do with, just what happened with us today.
Yeah. Feeling
in your body. Now, we don't always want to use our bodies as guinea pigs for this kind of stuff. But we're in a class. She's putting you in a class.
This is great. I'll tell, this is interesting because I used to do, I was on a healing team at a local New Age shop for a couple of years, and we'd have on Wednesday nights or whatever it was. And I was in the healing room with we'd work as a team with the other practitioner. And all of a sudden, and then the next client would be at the front desk paying and whatever. So we're in there together waiting for the next client. And all of a sudden, Marla, my throat just I could, I was like, my throat closed up and I was literally, yeah. And then it was the weirdest thing. And then it went away. Now, when the woman came in that we were going to work on, I asked, is something going on with the throat? And she said she had a throat chakra thing. And I felt that. And then I had the same one. I had heartburn. I'd never had heartburn in my life. I had heartburn. And I said, do you have a problem with heartburn? She goes, yes, I've been having heartburn. So I felt,
so there we go.
Feeling some things there. And I was like, wow, I was like so excited.
Okay, well, these are tools, right? But we don't want necessarily to have to be able to do that. So right. I'm back to the empath conversation of being empathic. And of course, I'm not sitting in front of you doing this work with you as a client, but this is how powerful Zoom is.
Yeah. Yes.
And also the dynamic of, a deceased loved one coming in, but her giving me this information.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that this is really good PR for God, because this larger consciousness system that we call God, gives us this opportunity to do this. This is what's so remarkable about it.
It's so healing. It's so great. I'm just, and I love the fact that you help with finding, murder, solving murders and all that. Now, just this empath thing, again, I want to bring up, what's interesting is a lot of, I'm in different groups on Facebook, tarot readers, healers, this and that. And a lot of them will, do you feel, I'm an empath and I can't function. I'm so, sick or down. And I don't think that people kind of wear it as a badge of honor. I'm so empathic. I can feel everybody's pain. I can't even function. And because I don't want to claim that. I don't want to be, not functioning because I feel everything. So speak a little bit about the pros and cons of being an empath, and I think and the fact that everybody kind of wears that as a badge a little bit when they're.
Well, I don't. I didn't market this book as a how-to because
Right.
it's a memoir.
But people want to find out about you and your ability and all this stuff. So
Well, yeah, but there's anecdotal information in this because
Right.
you know, you go on this ride with me
Yeah.
about, you know, how this all happened so that other people can go, oh my gosh, that happened to me too.
Right.
Or, excuse me, or I want to tell my stories.
Yes.
Inspire people to tell their truth, go on the ride with me, but the anecdotal information about all of the things that I did in
Right.
order to train myself to do this work is pretty remarkable. So it is kind of, the book itself is like that.
Right.
But it's also about healing the trauma. So we go back to the trauma again.
Right.
These empaths, these wonderful, beautiful, lovely, frail, fragile, excuse me, hold on, talented empaths are basically walking around like Geiger counters, and they have to get boundaries and they have to heal, or this sort of woundedness or this victim conversation keeps coming up. Oh, I can't go into the groups. Oh, I can't do this. I can't. So there's a lot of I can'ts instead of, oh my gosh, I can heal this, get boundaries, and move on with my life. Still being highly psychic, being very empathic, but taking on other people's stuff is not great. And as I have found with other students and other people who've been around me for years, a lot of them like to medicate themselves. And I can't do that anymore.
Or a lot of with food.
Well, with food, with alcohol, with any kind of medication. And that to me, it really sort of, I'm not being judgmental, I just know it myself. I'm speaking for myself. It dumbs down the nervous system.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need that. I mean, there are days when I will spend time in bed after having gone through a lot of work. I just need to chill out.
Yeah.
And I'll watch my favorite movie.
Netflix and some, vegan mac and cheese or something. That's what I'll do.
Well, I also have to be really careful. I mean, I'm turning 62 in September, so I'm still, I still think I'm 38. But my body's telling me, no, you're not. So I need to be as healthy as possible because this is what I do. This is my job. I am my job. So being an empath is tricky. As you see through the lens of this book, I am raised by a malignant narcissist. And so healing the narcissist empath wound is something that I am an armchair expert about. And I spent 30 some years in therapy, 18 years in life coaching, all of these therapeutic studies, which you have done yourself in order to gain perspective.
Yeah.
And that's what we all need and want.
Right.
And we get to a certain point, like I did in the mid-90s, where I had to get a hold of this because it was an onslaught, being stalked and my antennas blowing up, and understanding that I had to work with law enforcement to help protect me. And I ended up working on cases for law enforcement and then working, being trained with the U.S. military psychic spies. It was a lot of stuff and I had to ground myself constantly.
Right.
And I've got like a weighted blanket over here that I will put on me after working so far out with people.
Wow.
Or I will swim, or I share a dog with friends of mine. I can't have a dog here, but and you have a partner.
Yeah.
My way of handling that is I have a masseuse who only sees a few people, and we wear masks, and she works on me. But I don't have partnership. And in preparation for working with you today, I thought, well, should I tell her this? I mean, here's the vulnerability of all of this.
Yeah.
I don't have a partner because I can't have anyone in my field
Oh,
because it's so distracting.
that's so interesting. So did you ever marry or
I,
have?
yeah, I was married. The book opens on the end of my marriage, and I don't really talk about my marriage because there was a lot of pain in that marriage, but it was my training ground for a lot of this. But I would start working, and all of a sudden I'd see my husband in my field carrying a wheelbarrow filled with shit. And I'm like, what is that about? So there were things that were coming into my life that was just not good for me.
Yeah.
And so the wrestling with all of that. And I haven't dated since 2015.
Because you find it, if they're in your field, then it's distracting for your work.
Unless they are so healthy,
Mhm.
unless they've got their stuff together, unless they are not like, a lot of people my age aren't interested in someone my age. They're interested in much younger people, right?
Yeah, both men
So,
and women. They want somebody, yeah.
yeah,
But
well, I'm pretty vibrant.
listen, I
So,
would think you wouldn't have, if you wanted it, you would not have a problem finding somebody, believe
well,
me.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate your words of wisdom about that. Maybe I will talk to you about that at some point. But at this stage of the game, this work to me is more important than anything.
Right, of course, yeah. Well, if anybody who's watching that doesn't know, you may have found this video and you don't know me, I'm a matchmaker because so I'm a matchmaker.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
That people will find it and then not know as we're talking about we're doing it. Well, it's interesting too because I also work the psychic hotlines for fun and
good.
Yeah, so I get, but here's the thing: when I was reading that you went into therapy and life coaching, and you needed to work on all this because all of most people I meet, we have things from our childhood, usually from 10 and under, that affect how because God, I was a drama queen, dating narcissists and dating verbal abusers and all of that as well, like 20s and 30s, 3 marriages, and these women who call me, this is very interesting. They'll mostly, I have so many, I never knew so many women wanted their ex back because I'll get these is my ex coming back? Are we getting back together? We broke up, but is he still thinking about me? Is he still in love with me? He cheated on me and he lives with somebody else now, but is he still in love with me? Is he coming back? Daily? And I'm not the only one. There's hundreds of us out there on these lines. So it breaks my heart because this is all going back to things they haven't cleared and healed in themselves.
That's the problem. And so here's like the caveat around all of this. We choose to come in this lifetime. We've lived many, many, many times. I mean, at the top of my book, I've got this great quote by Brian Weiss, Dr. Brian Weiss, the father of past life regressions. So I am very much aware that we've lived many times and I've had lots of regressions and all of that, ones that I can actually prove. But the dynamic of this is we are here now for a reason. Yeah. And part of our needing to come in, part of the woundedness, part of the codependent dynamic that we have had to deal with is to be able to stand up. Mm-hmm. Stand up to the narcissist. I mean, I have a whole series of these narcissists through the book, which you go on the ride with me, come on, you're going to heal on some level. You're going to take the ride with me, right? You got to call your therapist, but that's the whole process. It's loving us. The caveat is self-love.
Yeah. Yes.
And my God, my mother's sexually imprinting me out of rage, not out of stimulation for her or me. It was completely out of rage. Yeah. So she scrubbed me in order for me not to feel.
Uh-huh. And she was physically scrubbing you with a washcloth. Yeah.
Every bath night until I was 12 years old, inappropriately.
Yeah.
So that dynamic is something that is so strange and so weird. And, I've had numerous therapists and we're all friends and we're all colleagues and everything. But the dynamic of having that femininity, she tried to destroy it.
Mhm.
And the dynamic for me is healing that. So each one of us has these broken parts,
Right.
which make us so beautiful and make us so incredibly talented and interesting and fragile and everything. But if we are yearning, if we are going to that norepinephrine download that we get from longing,
Mhm.
we have to fix it or we'll be miserable.
Yeah.
And thank goodness for matchmakers like you or facilitators like you who, and I'm one of them too, that's basically saying, look, I can tell you, but you won't want to listen to me because I'm seeing future probability for you. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but if you continue on this path, no doubt you will run into this.
Yeah, and I know they're calling because they want to say, the psychic to say, yes, loves you. But I usually won't, I'll say the guides are asking you to ask yourself why you want to be with someone who keeps cheating on you and who left, or why, or
Right.
what can you do to, and then I'll advise a couple of books, a couple of maybe things, videos on YouTube, some tapping, some breath work, something.
Yeah.
I want to give them something.
Good. Excellent. That's perfect. And you can and you've also got, your sister, other Marla.
Yes.
With this, that went through all of this for a long time.
I'll be recommending your book now too.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to me to see you left acting, right? To do this.
I left acting in 2002.
Yeah. And was that was it, partly because of all these narcissists and what you were having to put up with, or was the pull to help people psychically was that just more pulling?
Well, it was a combination of things. I got married in 2002. Mm-hmm. So there was a sense of safety in doing that, but that was ridiculous because my whole world blew up. Two weeks afterward, we ended up being in a lawsuit with a very famous entertainment person, and it just completely, our whole relationship was basically hell for the time that we were married based on that dynamic. But there were so many things that I did learn, and I loved him. And I remember walking down the aisle going, I'm not so sure why I have to marry him, but I knew I had to marry him. And also I had to divorce him too. Spirit ripped me out, put a 22-year-old in his lap, and that was it. I was done.
Wow.
So that, that's pretty fast.
Yeah.
But the love and the compassion and who he was and everything was so wonderful, and it was incredibly healing. So at that time, I left acting because this other work was so much more important. And you know what, Marla? I didn't want to pretend anymore. I'd been pretending for so long. Right. With my mother, with that whole relationship. But no, I couldn't do it anymore. I loved it. And I was good at it. Yeah. I have up on my YouTube channel, I have a whole, 59 seconds of clips from various television shows that I did. And I did great work with commercials, but I didn't need to do it anymore. I miss the people, but I still work in the entertainment industry for directors and producers and writers who want their projects up online.
That's awesome. And I agree. It's like, even I don't really I had fun acting, but I don't miss it that much because this kind of work that I'm stepping into more is so magical.
Yes.
It's like you're living in a real Harry Potter world or something. And people are like happy. When I go once a week, I do a Facebook Live, usually Sundays. And I do animal spirit card readings for a half hour. The women, they're flocking, they're texting me, are you going to be on Facebook Live today doing the animal spirit card? Like people, to get these messages and to have a little magic in their life, it's just so special, gives you such a special feeling, right?
Well, this is the key. This is another key of the book. It's my intention always that people are inspired to find their own intuition, to go down this road like you are so bravely doing, and excitedly so, because it's truly within the context of that. You talk about the acting. Here I am working with great people all over the world, as an actor, having great fun, traveling, being on stage. Nothing was more fulfilling than talking to Uncle Fred or cousin Sally or friend Christine. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's so much more
Oh
rewarding.
my
And
God. Yeah.
bridging, it's always bridging that love, that connection, that heart-centeredness. So I'm so thrilled that you invited me to do this.
Oh, this is so great. Can we talk about a couple more things before I let you go?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to bring up psychometry, which I think is so fascinating. And you really, that would, when you touch something is when you would start to see these images, right?
Well, for law enforcement, I mean, what's
Oh,
curious about this is, first off, as a child, because I didn't trust things, I always had to touch my food. You know, my friends say, Marla's coming over. We don't need any silverware. I like to touch my food. There's something about, fabrics, and it makes me feel safe. That's what I did as a child. I needed to feel safe, and touch was very important. But I ended up being in James von Prague's house, which was just remarkable in and of itself.
I love him.
And James, just, it's in the book, but I saw him on television, and I was in his house 2 days later. That's the tease to find out more about.
I was like so jealous because I've never met him, but I was in one of his courses where he gave me like a 60-second reading with the group on the phone. But everybody says how nice he is, how amazing. I think he's one of the most powerful mediums. I mean, I was just like, she got to work with him and go to Brazil with him, and
well, this was before even he was famous. It was right before his first book came out. So that's all in the book, and it's very interesting. But this whole psychometry thing happened when he put me in a class just to prove to me that I was a medium, and the psychometry stuff had already been active. And what was going on at the same time was a friend of mine said to me, I heard you're becoming some sort of psychic. Can I bring you a case? And I'm like, well, I wasn't even working for law enforcement at that time. I said, sure, come over. I don't know how I can help. But he handed me a black and white 8x10 photo of a crime scene. And I took that photo. It was a 30-year-old cold case. And I took that photo, and bam, just like that, I was in the field where that girl was murdered. I saw who she was with. I saw what he did to her. I saw her reaction. I felt what was going on. It was so shocking.
Mm-hmm.
I gave him information, gave the name of the guy. I gave so much information, and it was so much information that they reopened the case by giving that information to an investigative reporter.
Yeah.
That case was brought to trial, but the piece of information that was so interesting, I saw the piece of wood, and I knew that it was in the courthouse or in the evidence locker, and they had had a flood, so they didn't allow that piece of evidence to be used or to make it admissible. So he did not get sentenced, or they did not find him guilty because they did not allow that in.
Wow.
But that was one of those times of going blind. So what I suggest people do is, I don't have any envelopes here with me, but what you do is when you get your mail, hold the envelope.
Oh, okay.
If it's a bill, I see a 743. Hopefully it's not $743. Hopefully it's just $7.43. Or feel a photograph. Get your friends together. Have them all bring different photographs in envelopes. Just one photograph in an envelope, and everybody pick up an envelope. And you can feel sometimes the colors, sometimes the emotion. Sometimes somebody will get the exact thing that is in the envelope. So that's a wonderful, class thing to do.
I did a class, and we had brought things of loved ones. So somebody gave me their father's hat.
Yeah.
And I was holding it, and then the teacher says, "Can you figure out what he died from?" And I just tuned in, and I said, "Diabetes," and I was correct.
Yeah.
So holding somebody's, and then somebody else gave me his father's pocket knife. I didn't know it was his father's at the time. And the first thing I got was, I'm getting fishermen. I'm getting fishing, and I had about 8 things I got, and he says he was the biggest fisherman you could ever imagine, and I got about 8 things that were true, and I was so excited. I'm like, who can I practice with? I've got to practice this, because I know it just takes practice, right?
But
so
to be able to immerse yourself in an opportunity where you trust the person who's talking to you. And Marla, you have that resonance of people wanting to come to you. So you have that. You've
You
already
mean
developed.
people who have passed or real people in life?
Well, probably both.
Okay.
It's just that you have a lovely resonance and people will want to work with you. I think you have to be very careful about how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
If someone recommends to you working with someone and you don't like the way that feels, then don't work with them. Work
Right.
with somebody else.
Right.
But, I've just, this book has just kept me really quite busy. I was going to have up online at some point in time, other people that are doing various things that I can recommend, but I'm always, recommending various people. And
then do you work with people that way? Tell us how you work with people, how people can work with you.
Well, right now, it's just phone.
Mm-hmm.
And,
but I mean, do they so they can do phone readings with you? Do
yes.
you do any kind of training or just basically?
I'm not teaching right now. The book is the greatest tool that I have to teach anybody anything right now.
Right.
And it's 300 pages, so it's a chunk, but it's a journey. And if people want it, that's great. I love the fact that you can still go to a bookstore and pick up a book and even, feel it.
Right.
Feel the book. I don't know if my book is still out there in Barnes and Noble, but you have to trust your own intuition.
Yes.
So
trust
it. You have to feel it inside of you. But also spirit consciousness, thems, we call them thems in my book, thems, it's all collective of all of it, the heavenly eternal messaging system. But that comes to you in various ways. And we have to teach ourselves to be able to hear it, to listen to it, to understand it. And this is what we're doing. And in this pandemic, we have an incredible opportunity. If we are socially unable to visit with people, that means we can go out by our trees and start to do some journaling, start to listen, ask before you go to bed to communicate with deceased loved ones. This is all about simply the intention of what do I need to know for Marla today?
Right.
What do I need to know for Tony at 7:00 tonight? And I have to be very careful, because if I start thinking about Tony that I see at 7 tonight, this morning at when I'm hiking at 5 a.m, I'll get a bunch of downloads and I'll be like, whoa, wait, I don't want to open that door,
Oh, that's a great point, because I'm going to give a gala reading later today. But what I do is I record it on my iPhone and then I email it. But I can start asking ahead of time, what do I need to know for her later? Yeah, I don't do that.
Be careful, because you don't want your whole day saturated with the clients that you're getting later on, because
we'll see if that happens to me. I got to try it and see if.
Oh my God, dead people will show up.
Really, I want them to show up because I want to.
You don't want it on the 101.
No,
you don't want to have it happen. So you have to pull over the side of the road and write down notes from Fred.
And do you ever see them physically?
Sure, of course I do.
Okay, yeah,
it's really whatever's best for the person.
Right.
But the thing that I am so good at doing, and it may be because of the acting, the movies that we saw for years, I'm so good at them putting me in somebody's place. Putting me in your living room, putting me in their living room where they had a party with you, and etc. I literally, my mind bilocates to these places.
Yeah, well, you studied remote viewing too. That was a big, that was a fast.
But it was all of the trauma, Marla, that I suffered in splitting and the disassociation of allowing my brain to go someplace else. See, it's not rocket science.
Right.
The brain can go any place at any time. Boom, just like that.
And what was interesting in your book too, you said that you realized you had to have that mother that put you through all that to have you where you are today and doing this work today. So people talk about, well, we decide which family we're going to come into before we come into the body, what lessons we're going to learn. So I think that does make it a little easier when people can be resentful or like, why did I have such parents, or why did I be born into this situation when, well, you picked it, but
Well, I like to say that my mother and a few of my family members were all seated at a picnic table, saying, okay, I'm going to go down there and be your mother. Oh, God, that's going to be really tough. I'm like, oh, I know. I can feel it already. Oh, my God. Okay. Or we get a sibling that's just like, why? Well, we needed that. We needed it.
And then one more thing I want to bring up is the narcissist thing, because as a matchmaker too, I talk to a lot of women, and it seems like there's so many narcissists around all of a sudden. That's all I hear is, I was with this narcissist. My ex is a narcissist. And then if it's a disorder, maybe we can have some compassion for them. Doesn't mean we need to be in a relationship, but I think there's a lot. Maybe. Okay,
there's a root to this, and I think that the root is we're a country of surviving war. And what happens when your husband or your father is an alcoholic? You become codependent, right? Yeah. Anybody that is not available, there's a codependency that happens within the family, and you're always looking for love outside of you, which makes you reaching to the outside world. You're wanting to talk to dead people, you're wanting to talk to God, you're wanting to talk to somebody, but you also are looking for saviors and father figures if your father was not available. And this is really something very interesting that we are dealing with in our country. We needed a father figure. We've had other presidents. We've needed father figures. We've needed saviors, because we need somebody to act as though there's something else. And sometimes they're bad actors. Perhaps they are not the right person, but that's what we think we need. No, we need to grow up. We need to parent ourselves.
Yes.
So that so that narcissists, who are deeply wounded people, just needing and acting out all the time, we can go, love you, but you have to go handle your own stuff. Right. And if it's kind of like a rabid dog in a weird way. Yeah. Like with if you have a parent that's really quite ill, like my mother was, you can't harm it. But you certainly can't trust it. So it's like a dog. You give it the food, but you back away slowly. You don't turn, because they'll bite you in the butt on the way out. But you have to gain distance. Yeah. I mean, I moved 3,000 miles away just so I couldn't be with her. But that imprinting, that cord, the third chakra, being connected to her, I had to keep breaking that and breaking that and breaking that in order for me to feel good about myself. Because she was so abusive. So the narcissist set up this game inside of us where we think we need them to validate us, when in fact we have to learn to validate ourselves.
Love it. Marla, thank you for spending this time. Oh my God, I could talk to you.
Oh, thank you. Marla.
So American Psychic, go get it on Amazon or any bookstore. The link is below. And let us know in the comments below, you guys, if you are getting some downloads. What's your experience with psychic ability? Do you have any questions? And Marla's website is flashing up on the screen, and it's below. So let us know your thoughts. We want to hear from you, and much love, everybody.
Thank you.